I don't know. I mean, I'm obviously old, but standing up here, I can't help but feel like the Rolling Stones must have felt at the, what was it, the Kenworth concert when they followed Leonard Skinner after they played the short 27-minute version of Freebird, because the room cleared out. But this is my 4th conference in the past 2 weeks. So I'm not going to complain like everybody else has about the altitude. I'm going to complain about being from plane to plane to plane to plane to plane. But I can say that after attending 4 of the similar types of conferences in the last short period of time, there is a phenomenal amount of work that happens on the back end, front end on putting one of these together. And bar none, you guys have done a fantastic job. Everybody from the greeters to your audio guys to everybody, you're completely aligned and you've done fantastic work, so congrats to that. You guys can clap them too, it's okay. And I feel the need to really buy gifts or something for attending this one, but we'll maybe get these guys to throw in something as a thank you. So Roland was going to speak, and at the last minute he had a great opportunity, which was fantastic for him, so I can attest that usually it is the great people that are the first to leave, or that leave sometimes, but that's great. I'm wearing it as a feather in my cap that he's going off to a wonderful opportunity. He did some great work for us, and one of those was launching Bridge in this partnership that we have. So a little bit about us, and I apologize, but I'm going to probably spend a lot of time standing around here because unlike everybody else who created everything, I got kind of like 3 days notice, hop on a plane and come out. So maybe I'm more like Todd Rundgren at that concert instead of the Rolling Stones. He was also there. He was the third act. So since 1929, our company and different brands associated with it has really been in the safety, compliance, and safety training business. In fact, we have a basement, sub-basement in our building where we have a collection of newsletters that we produced in the 1930s that talk about this brand new form of PPE called a hard hat. For those of you that have never worn one, it seems kind of ubiquitous that people didn't at any time. But yeah, we've been in that model, and we were kind of a specialized information publisher, right? We take very niche content and put it out, originally starting off as newsletters or print periodicals, and then kind of transitioning into instructor-led training. Right? About a year ago, I took over as CEO of the company. I've been with the company for 8 years, but this is my new evolution, I suppose. I'm not sure where the next step is. It's probably out, but that's okay. I think only a couple people laughed at that one. My wife doesn't laugh at that one either. She makes sure to call the lawyer ahead of time. So I'm going to run us through kind of our migration, our transition, our creation of this partnership that we have with Bridge right now, and why it's working, why we decided, and how we came to work with Bridge, and then some of the lessons that we've learned as a response for it and what our next steps are in doing that. But beforehand, because I don't think there are a lot of people out there in the audience, and you guys can raise your hands or try and work through the crowd and tell me how many of you are actually in this content provider type business? It's hard to see amongst all of them. Okay. It's a joke from myself. It's that self-deprecating Canadian humor. All right, well, we have a lot of problems probably that we share in place as a content provider. The reality is that we, since 1929, have built up kind of this legacy of having strong solutions and this sense of authority that comes with being in business for almost 100 years. And we have this established pedigree, but really we were rather late to transition to online, and we were built on kind of old business models. Right? It used to be enough 50, 60, 70 years ago to produce the content, and people would clamor to get it. Whereas, as you've probably noticed in the last 10, 20 years, content is kind of commoditized. Is that fair to say? Would everybody agree with that? I know I definitely see it daily on the revenue. So really, we like I said, we were late to go online. We were late to transition. We were still producing this great content for instructor-led training. And we started producing content online and e-learning, but we really weren't great at it, all right? We weren't taking, obviously, this pedigree and transitioning into something that could evolve to the next step. The problems that we had, well, we had a very massive library. We had about 200 plus courses. Half of it was Flash, half of it's HTML5. Obviously, it didn't all start that way. It moved towards that. We had about 120 plus video courses. We're actually around 180 now. And we had really the bulk of what we had was 2,500 of these compliance safety talks. But the reality is that safety training in a conventional model really isn't working. I don't know. How many of you have actually attended a safety meeting before? Okay, how many of you actually enjoyed a safety meeting before? I can say I have. I have attended one safety meeting by some guy that was like a really compelling, engaging speaker. He only had one arm. I'm going to tell you it was a workplace injury. I don't know if that led to him being such a great speaker. It wasn't the trade-off he probably wanted to make. But he was telling a real story, and it resonated, and it was fantastic. But by and large, most safety training is delivered by frontline managers, maybe a safety supervisor, maybe a director level. If it's a small organization, and I guarantee you it's not the most, it might be the most important thing he's doing, but it's not what he perceives as the most important thing he's doing. And it really hadn't changed in a long time. I mean, I think Nixon created OSHA 40 years ago. And since then, safety training has kind of been a torture that most employees do, right? Whether it's delivered on the back of a F-150 or a tailgate talk, or it happens to be delivered in a room like this, it's very seldom delivered in a room like this, and I can guarantee you that the lunch is never as good as the lunch is here. And it doesn't resonate with people, and by and large, it doesn't work. And a lot of the reasons why it wasn't working was companies, competitors to ours, and us as well, were really taking what worked in an instructor-led and trying to move it into online, or take, you know, what had worked 40 years ago, 50 years ago, when it was just enough to say something, and keep it going. And the reality is, people learn differently now. People engage with content differently now. I don't know, how many of you have children? Okay. So I have a son that's graduating high school this year, and a son that's in like grade 4. There's a long story between the gap, but you can see that it's there. So I thought of myself as somebody that was actually, you know, not the smartest kid in the room, but I was okay. And I could help my older son with homework, specifically with math. He used to come to me all the time, used to bat around formulas, write him out, help with his homework. I felt like the hero, which every father should feel like, for like a fraction of a second till it ages out. Whereas my younger son now comes to me with math homework, and I don't know if any of you have younger children, but math is different now, which doesn't fundamentally make any sense to me because it's still numbers, and the numbers haven't changed in like 5,000 years. And calculus by itself is 3,000 years old. But math is taught differently now, and he engages with it differently now. And really, that's a parable to what we were facing as a company with our product line. So when I took over as CEO, I spoke to Roland at the time and said, Roland, you really got to look at this as an opportunity to maybe burn the house down. We had built up a lot and a nice pedigree, and it was a beautiful home, but it wasn't working anymore. You know, we pulled this quote out. Really, it came down to like most content providers were either really good at content or really good at platform, but never really good at both. I kind of think that's a little leading because most content providers were really good at content, okay at platform, but never good at both. Right? And so it really became an opportunity for us as a company to start doing things differently in the last year, 12 months. Or, yeah, I guess that would be a year. In the last year, 15 months' time. We decided to focus more on producing kind of discrete, short burst training content. Things that were a little more engaging, things that had storytelling, things that were simple, things that were modern, no more than 20 minutes at a time, that actually engaged people with games. Not gamification, because I don't know if anybody has talked about it, but the badges and stuff like that don't necessarily produce the same results that it did, but actual games. So I'm going to show one of our, it's right here. I think you actually like this. So I couldn't actually get it to work in front of you guys where we could participate in the game, but it isn't a video. This is just a screen capture of one of our training courses. And what it is that you have a fire extinguisher and have to put out a fire. By the way, you don't want me to be the one that works the fire extinguisher, because I've played that game at least 100 times and I still can't put out the bloody fire. And so that's kind of where we got to. Now, we made a whole bunch of investment in all of this new content and all of these new courses, but we didn't really make any kind of investment in the platform to deliver it. So, we've all heard the quote before that it's about delivering the right message at the right time to the right people. Well, we had the right people. We definitely had the right message. And by the way, most safety people have the right message. Very seldom do safety people tell you the wrong thing to do. I suppose it does happen, in which case, pass my card on to them, because I'd really like to talk to them. But most people do it. It's just a matter of delivering that message to people. And I think now that we've probably talked a little bit beforehand, or other people have talked about millennials, I told you how my kid learns math, and I feel like an idiot sitting at the kitchen table trying to do like grade 5 math. It's really hard, okay? I forgot, I kind of focused on business. Right? All I know is the chart's supposed to go up and to the right. So we looked at this, and I tasked Roland with finding us a partner that could deliver a platform really well, so that we had take what I think is actually great training content and put it in front of people in a way that was easy to access, in a way that was easy to use, in a way that was the right message at time. And something that was probably a little more graphic and pretty, right? I usually tell this story whenever I'm on a sales call, which is not that often, but whenever I am on a sales call, I always tell this one story about the Vancouver Canucks. So I'm from Vancouver. Everybody familiar with hockey? Yeah, I know it's not the popular sport in the United States, but like any true Canadian kid, I was born with a stick and a puck in my hand, right? My grandfather actually was a goaltender for the Vancouver Canucks in the 1950s. The talent, by the way, skips, like it just disappeared. So there was a guy named Brett Rosington who was the chief safety officer at GM Place where the Vancouver Canucks play. And he invited me down to do a tour. And like any good corporate person that was offered a freebie, I went, yeah, sure, no problem, I'll go down, right? There was a couple games, he was giving me tickets, I was going to be up in the owner's suite, it was fantastic. So he brought me down. Now, for those of you that don't recall, and I don't know why you would, Vancouver hosted the 2012 Winter Olympics, right? And I'm sure you all watched the news when Rio hosted the Olympics, or when Sochi hosted the Olympics, or when Beijing hosts the Olympics, or anybody that hosts the Olympics. It always seems like the last 2 weeks is spent building the infrastructure that's so far behind. There's guys with duct tape out, they're bringing in all kinds of labor off of boats. And Vancouver was no different at the time. So Brett, who was in charge of that facility, was also in charge of that facility during the Olympics, and he had to deliver a safety talk every single day. Right? It's not that common that people deliver safety talks every day, but they were going like gangbusters. And so Brett stood in front of a room like this, chocker block full of people, lots of anybody that basically had a carpentry ticket, an electrician's ticket, had ever held a hammer, knew how to use a drill, or anything. Like the Canadian government just opened it up for work visas, right? Everybody and anybody could come in just as long as you were going to work on the Olympics. Don't know if it was quite worded that way, but that's kind of what happened. So Brett's standing in front of a room, not unlike this, talking about ladder safety, which is something that everybody in construction industry faces every single day. They go up and down ladders, and there are, by the way, different ladders. You're not supposed to stand on the top rung. There are certain rules and laws and regulation tied to ladder safety. And he delivered a talk, and Brett was actually a much better speaker than I am, much more handsome, stood in front, gave probably was a powerful safety talk. Everybody paid attention to the level that everybody does pay attention, so I'm sure there were cell phones open and Facebook and laptops and paying attention to everything else and making jokes to the person next to them. And everybody filed out to go off and grab the duct tape and build the rest of the facilities that needed to be built for the 2012 Olympics, which I think went off like nothing, right? Like it was probably phenomenal to watch on TV. No? Okay. There's still stuff falling down now. Not quite as bad as Rio, but it's not good. And anyways, he walked out, and then he did what the standard safety person does inside of a room, and he, grabbed the donuts, and he grabbed what was left over of the coffee, and he put the chairs back in order and spent about 5-10 minutes cleaning up the room, and then walked out of the room. And as he walked out of the room, now has everybody here been in an ice rink before? Okay. I mean, we're in Colorado. Hockey's still pretty popular in Colorado, but I don't think everybody came from Colorado. So in an ice rink, and it makes sense, the electrical wires are actually hung in racks from the ceiling, right? Because ice rinks are wet, and it doesn't make sense to have electrical wires on the ground. It doesn't make sense to have electrical wires in the walls or anything along those lines. So they're all on those little racks. Have you guys seen them? Okay, and those racks are made out of aluminum. Same thing that your pop can is made out of, probably the same type of thickness as the pop can aluminum, right? And they hold just enough weight, that is those electrical wires. And as he walked out of the room, as if I was walking out that door, 10 steps, there was a 300-pound Irish electrician splayed out on the racks and the wrong ladder sitting on the floor. Because instead of using a step ladder, he used an extension ladder. Probably climbed on the top rung. The ladder gave out. He fell over. He was holding on for dear life. And even though it's a 12-foot drop, it's still concrete down there. It's still going to hurt. Somebody's going to get injured. And that story is not altogether uncommon in my industry. Somebody stands up, and it's probably not uncommon in your industry, even if you take the safety outside of it. I always think that when I tell somebody to do something, that it's perfectly clear, that they understand it 100%, and then I am shocked every single time that it doesn't happen exactly how I thought it was going to happen. But it never happens exactly how I thought it was going to happen. So that's why we started looking for, that story is a nice, again, parallel to why we started looking for Bridge, because in our industry specifically, people were looking for consistency of messaging, right? It wasn't a matter of delivering the right content, it was making sure that that content was delivered the right way every time, in every way. And so we came up with a bunch of reasons why we chose Bridge. Well, I can tell you that we actually took a look at 50 different LMS systems, all right, which is a lot. It took about 6 months of investigation. There was 22 demos. There was probably 22 sales managers that thought they were this close to landing a really big deal. Well, I guess 21 sales managers that thought they were this close to landing a really big deal. And ultimately, we chose Bridge for reasons of usability. There was an alignment between what we were thinking and the problems that we were facing, and even though they were problems that we thought were specific to our industry and specific to our type of content, Bridge was thinking about them in the same way for all kinds of learning aspects. And one of the big things that really pulled us into it was the discussions we were talking about with Retain. Is everybody here using Retain? That's it, really? If you're not using Retain, you got to start using Retain. And I'll talk a little bit about why you got to start using Retain, but really it came down to that, and it came down to us being able to give our clients the ability to author their own courses very easily. And then the powerful APIs that we had built in on the back end too. I'm going to move a little bit forward. We actually had hundreds of SCORM courses that we were able to upload in literally minutes. I was actually surprised once it started. I remember Roland pressing the switch. It's a figurative switch. It was a button. And then I bought him coffee, and it was done. And this is something that we had we had actually sold as a service to clients for years and years and years at billable hours, and hundreds of billable hours to upload content, which is now done. You basically screwed my business. But no, you allowed us to focus on different things, all right? New value adds is what I'm telling everybody. That's what I told the board anyways. And that you were releasing features, or Bridge was releasing features that were really without compromise. We are an enterprise reseller, I guess. Is that what you're classifying us as, or enterprise?
Extended enterprise, yeah.
All right. I knew enterprise was in there. I'm sure sometimes there are other expletives thrown in on occasion, but really, and we have, all of our existing clients have sub-accounts. And it's allowed us to create tailored course catalogs. It's allowed us to release automatic updates for all of our clients, literally with the press of a button. And it's allowed us to do a bunch of customized branding and personalization for each client too. So Stark Industries, although not an actual company, you can see that Jonathan Hansen there has actually taken his Bloodborne Pathogens course, which would be another fun one. If you guys want, take our Bloodborne Pathogens course, because you thought the fire extinguisher one was neat. There's like needles everywhere. It's pretty wild. That one went way off the deep end on creativity. And really it came down to the ease of use for all of our clients. We had a system that we had built at one time using Moodle. And for probably the 5 years that we were in the e-learning business before this relationship, all it really was an external database, right? And it was a matter of diving deep or having the right kind of query and pulling out the right kind of content. That's not really user-friendly. We were collecting data, which is fine, and everybody in every MBA program will tell you, oh, it's all about data collection, data. But we weren't really doing anything more than, helping people master Excel, right? We were collecting data, but every single client just had to do a CSV export, start running pivot tables, start running something to try and find the relationship. And the one great feature that we found with Bridge was the data visualization, right? So this intuitive aspect of taking what is a bulk of metrics and funneling it down to something that was actionable and easy to use. I'm going a little fast. Am I going fast? How am I doing for time? Oh yeah, I'm going fast. We can tell stories about Canada then at the end. It's actually really great. Our Prime Minister is like super fit. And I'll tell you stories about hanging out with him at university because he used to live with my buddy. So as it turns out, yeah, we actually pursued a model of marrying content with great platform. It's allowed us as a company to focus on what we do best, and what we do best is safety training material. What we do best is safety compliance material. And it's allowed us to free up resources that were spent doing a lot of firefighting before on trying to keep this Moodle, weird house of cards kind of LMS up, and reallocate those resources in producing exciting new content, producing games, producing bloodborne pathogens courses with needles flying around. It is literally like that too. And it's really allowed us to, did I click too fast? I clicked too fast, I'm sorry for that. Yeah. It's the same marketing department that uses irony in the wrong way, right? But it really allowed us to do something very quickly and launch a evolution of our product without having to spend years and years with development, without having to spend all this time trying to rewrite something that we were never going to be great at. But there were some lessons that we learned as a result from it. So if you are thinking of pursuing this, and I think you can pursue it probably internally within an organization too, just dividing up business units, it makes the same, it's the same business principle. The one thing we learned as we were adding in courses that it would have been a lot smarter for us to be smarter at the front end and use our titles in the right way so that they were intuitive. What was a 90-year content language for us wasn't necessarily an intuitive content language for our customers, and especially wasn't an intuitive content language for this new platform. And as a result, too, we really learned that having tags and using tags for the right way to make that content easily searchable, to make it easily finding it, same thing, I guess I just said. Because I go back to that right message, right time, right place. We had the right place with Bridge and this great platform. I think we had the right message with all of our content, but using the tags, using the titles really helped us deliver it at the right time to people. The other thing too is it's allowed us to sell something to our customers that we really couldn't offer to our customers beforehand, and that is the ability to create Bridge courses or customize content themselves. We are specific in an industry. We produce a lot of kind of general safety training, so this ladder training or the fire extinguisher training, and a lot of our clients wanted content that was specific to their job site. Right, so taking the 80% of what was ours and tweaking it a little bit. And utilizing the Bridge kind of course builder, they've been able to do that. We've been able to offer that to our clients. And it's really about being able to deliver that message such that it resonates with people. And then the other thing, really, I remember Roland talking to me about it probably 8-9 months ago. Is that about right, the timeline? About Retain, but it wasn't quite released, and it was something that you guys were thinking about and going to release and something along the lines. And then I was like, okay, so when is that coming? Because for our clients specifically, and I can't speak to your industry and I can't speak to your business, but there have been a couple speakers here today that have talked about how learning is more of an iterative thing. It isn't something that you just read once and you all of a sudden get. It's something that has to be conditioned. It's something that takes time. And the Retain feature through Bridge has really allowed us to take this great content and segment it off. So take our fire extinguisher course and then take out the game, which is only a fraction of that course, and make that a Retain course. So we have a scenario where a client would take the 20-minute course first and foremost, and then 2 days later take a 2-minute course, and then 5 days later take another 2-minute course with a quiz, and then 10 days later take another refresher type quiz. And of course, at any point, if somebody doesn't answer it correctly, go back to the step beforehand, right? Because I think this comes from a little bit of your guys' marketing material that we've kind of raped and pillaged somewhat. Did we? Did we change any of the pictures, or is it just a pure copy? Oh, well, that's what sells it, right? Otherwise, it was just a chart. Now we've got the UFO in it. I remember 2-3 years ago when I was in marketing with Bongard Safety now. So I was VP of marketing, and we had done a survey of 4,000 of our members. And it took us almost a year to get 4,000 people to respond to it. But we did. And one of the big things that came up was, again, that story that Brett Rosington at the Vancouver Canucks, that safety message, that learning, that instruction within the first, I think you guys produced that within the first 24 hours, 70% of it is gone. When it came to safety, because of the low level of engagement with Instructure-led, we actually had it around 85% of it was gone within 24 hours. And so the Retain has really allowed us to offer, and we have tested this with one of our clients, Saudi Aramco. I like to throw out the big names because nobody wants to hear about, mom and pop company. But we threw this out to Saudi Aramco, and when they started utilizing Retain and the safety program that we have set up with them, they've seen a 40% reduction in accidents and incidents. They've seen, as a result, the costs associated with that is somewhere around a 65-67% reduction in the costs associated, so their insurance costs. For the first time ever, Saudi Aramco's insurance premiums are going down this year. It might have something to do with the IPO, but it's actually going down. And so like I said, we started delivering kind of this clever solution. We have the 20-minute full course, we have the bite-sized refresher, and then we have these continual quizzes that come up after the fact. So the next step for us, really, and in case you guys didn't know or aren't utilizing it, Bridge is actually built on a pretty sophisticated API layer, and it's allowed us to do some very interesting things for our business unit. One of the things that we have, because we have a bunch of clients that are sub-accounts, it would be a manual nightmare for us to release one course or two courses to each single one at a time. And by utilizing the API, my CSMs can completely change the safety program for a company within a matter of minutes. Right? It's fantastic in that sense. The thing that we're working on for our next, well, probably released in Q4, is an integrated e-commerce experience within it. We have a scenario, so I can say like Saudi Aramco pays for a certain basket of safety training courses. We obviously want them to pay for everything that we offer, because sales produces revenue and upsells produce profit. So our next version is to have calls to action within the course, recommendations for the next course if you're at a certain level, such that if you're at the manager level, you can take the next version, or take Ladder Safety 2.0, Ladder Safety 3.0. Don't be the Irish guy lying. I can use that joke because I'm Irish, but it's still mildly racist, but I'm allowed to, I guess. Is Irish a race? It's not really a race, but yeah, so that's the next version of it, and the API function within Bridge is really allowing us to do it. So I apologize for me standing behind here and looking at the slides. It's not the best way to deliver a presentation, but I have accepted that I am the Todd Rundgren today. And with that, I kind of open the door to anybody that has any questions, implementation questions, can see it working, wants to know what made me lose this patch of hair as opposed to the other, anything along those lines. Yes, sir.
How much of your content is Bridge native, so you're building it within Bridge itself, and then how much is external, like that cool fire extinguisher game looked like a 3D Unity, like a Unity 3D build maybe that was,
Yeah.
that had a SCORM wrapper around it that got
Yep.
imported?
Yep.
I'm just curious, how much are you using between the two?
It's a great question. So I don't know if everybody heard it. It might be tough with the crowd. The question was, what kind of mixture of our content do we have between the stuff that we provide and the stuff that is built within Bridge? Some of our best clients are clients that have the highest engagement, or the ones that have really embraced creating their own content within Bridge. We, in our business specific, have a lot of clients that will come to us to kind of fill the 80% of their safety training needs, and they're still going to create, I know it's not that ratio all the time, but the 20% themselves that is very custom. For example, we'll have a confined spaces course that is going to resonate with an electrician or a plumber or whatever tradesperson that has to crawl into that deep, dark, dirty space and go to work. That course will resonate a lot more if they can show a picture of their machinery, or they can show a picture of their space and say, by the way, you want to make sure not to hit your head on this bar. You want to make sure to avoid this thing. So I'd say right now, we're only about a year into it. Like I said, for the ones that have adopted it and gone full bore and have the highest engagement, they're sitting around 15-20%. They're taking those PowerPoints that they've been using in this kind of format, probably standing here, point, and been uploading it. And that was the real easy, quick win for them. And then taking it the step further and instead creating more engaging content out of it instead of just having that PowerPoint. Does that answer for you? I mean, if you want, I'll pull some real numbers for you, and I'll tell you it's 27.43%. Anybody else? Yes.
With that content that they're creating, do you provide guidance for them? Are there any situations where you actually customize?
Yes. Yeah. So Again, I'll repeat the question for those of you way in the back. The question was about, I'm going to keep doing it, by the way. I think like 5 times and it'll stop being funny. Yeah, so do we create custom content and give them direction on the training material kind of synopsis? So yeah, we've been in business since 1929. The name of the company was Safety Foreman back then, so if anybody wants to do the wiki, you're going to go, what? He's such a liar. Bongard wasn't created then. And so we have on staff OSHA certified trainers. We have on staff kind of, various people with highly specialized knowledge, electrical safety. We have contractors that are safety compliance experts, lawyers, consultants, all these people. They're helping to create the courses, but also there as a value add for selling the content. So what we do is we don't just deliver the course, we create the program for you. Right? So you're not buying 4 courses, 5 courses, you're buying a complete compliance safety program. And that's, I guess, the real value add there is, yeah, there's a law tied behind it. You have to do it. There are certain regulations you have to follow. When you don't follow them, bad things happen, right? So does that answer?
Yeah, I think, just along with that too, does that look like you guys making a bridge-based course and then they customize it with their pictures, or are you actually going in and making these changes?
So, I mean, it's a mix of both, honestly. We have, for some of them, and at a certain level of course, right, we teach them how to fish, okay? Yes, I can see from the business case, well, then why are they going to keep coming to you? They'll start building their own material. And then the pivot for us is to be that authority, right? To leverage the fact that we've been around as long as we have, to leverage the fact that, yeah, I mean, in our particular industry, and I hear it a lot as a common sales objection, I keep telling our salespeople that our biggest competitor is not another company, it's no company, right? It's going to Google and pulling off a safety talk, or it's going somewhere else. And the objection handling to that is the same for these courses as it is for any type of sales conversation. There's no guarantee that what you're going to find out there is compliant, right? There's no guarantee that it's right. Whereas with us, there is a guarantee that it's compliant. There is a guarantee that it's right. And specifically with safety, the margin is so razor thin, right? And the risk is so great. I know I tell the funny story about the guy splayed out on the racks. And of course, I was there, so he's showing me, and it's a lot stronger visually. But you can imagine a fat guy, lying out there praying to whatever God he believes in that he's not going to fall. Or me laying up there pretending. But yeah, so the risks are human lives. The risks are real injuries. And a lot of people that are clients of ours are the people that have to call Sue, Cindy, Steve, John, whoever it is when an accident happens, right? So I know I waxed on a little bit on the emotional side of that. But yeah, we do on some lower level kind of content. I know I shouldn't use the word lower level because I kind of believe all safety material is high level, but stuff that they can design themselves and is an easy message to get out, we teach them to fish. And we inspect it afterwards. That was all right? Okay. Yes, ma'am. And by the way, ma'am is a form of respect. It's not anyway. I get that a lot. It's a Canadian thing. Okay.
We have a lot of clients who want us to be able to integrate our courseware into their existing offerings, or maybe another way to create a front door on their intranet site where they already have a suite of complementary offerings. And have you had experience with that? This might actually be more of a question for Instructure folks anyways, but how easy, difficult, pros, cons?
Yeah, I mean, we do have just shy of 24. They tend to be the larger clients, right, that have their own custom LMS or they're dovetailing it in with their HR system or something along those lines. And we do a little bit of both, actually. I have one client that we're using the APIs such that they have a single login into their HR system that redirects them into ours, which is in partnership with Bridge, and it's seamless from their perspective. It wasn't as easy as uploading the courses, I'll tell you that. But it wasn't terribly difficult either. And then we have some of them as well that are just using our content too, and we're not even talking to these guys at all. If you want, because I need a little more time to get into the details of all the lessons learned and everything, if you want to reach out to me afterwards, if you still remember in a couple days after the mixer, I don't know what it's going to be like. I heard it's a rager. Give me a call, and I will put you in touch with my entire team that was on it, because, like I said, it wasn't easy, but it wasn't terribly difficult either. There are a lot of ways to do it, and there's a lot of lessons that we learned from it too, that if it saves you time, fantastic. No problem. Anybody want to hear my Justin Trudeau stories? No?
I kind of want to see the bloodborne pathogens. Just kidding.
You do. It's like The Walking Dead. It's a
Is it okay if we
scary.
show that tomorrow on the show?
Absolutely. I won't be here. It's
I'll
fine.
pull it. I'll pull it.
It's a scary course. I have nightmares about it. And I made them scale it back too. Like, it was worse. As it turns out, there's a lot of strange stuff that can happen to you if you're a computer animation. Yeah. No, I don't think any of my Justin Trudeau stories are highly appropriate for the room.
Okay.
But I can
Should we
tell a
take
few
it
of
off?
them
Should we take it off
afterwards.
mic?
Like, let's take the mic off, and I'll tell you all kinds of stories about him. I never thought he'd be prime minister. I'll give you that.
Hey, round of applause for
Yeah.
Rick, guys. We don't want to get him in trouble. No, I'm just kidding.